Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now in today's one we're taking a look at the 5060 Ti 16GB once again to see how it performs at 1440p in 20 games. Yesterday we covered 1080p but today it's the turn of 2560 by 1440. Now keep an eye on the VRAM usage and utilization in this one. Of course there is an 8GB 5060 Ti available. At the time of recording I have seen both 8 and 16GB models available at their suggested retail price here in the UK, 349 and 399, which is surprising to see, to be honest. But let's get into the 1440p benchmarks today, see how it performs. I'll also have a comparison to an older RTX card using this thing as well to see if we can close the gap with upscaling. But for now, it's the turn of 1440p gaming, and we'll start with Counter-Strike 2. With the high preset here, which the game defaulted to, and 4x MSAA, we saw 273 FPS, a 1% low of 168, and a 0.1% low of 55. For GTA 5 Enhanced 1440p, I need to stop saying the resolution because all the games were tested at 1440p of course. We have the very high RT preset here with DLAA. Didn't go with the maximum RT preset because there was quite a significant difference between that and the very high RT preset, and visually doesn't look too dissimilar. So 108 FPS here with a 1% low of 90 and a 0.1% low of 86, a very consistent experience, and GTA 5 looks really nice with this new update. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 at high with SMAA 2TX for 86 FPS, a 1% low of 74 and a 0.1% low of 71 in and around this town here. Again, a very consistent experience and the game looks really good. I've uploaded at 4K regardless today to try and help the bitrate a little bit because a few of you were saying that yesterday's video was blurry. I'm going to stop uploading in 1080p now. Spider-Man 2 next at the high preset with DLAA once again. Keep an eye out on the VRAM usage, as I said, just as a reminder that there is an 8GB card as well, an 8GB 5060 Ti that no reviewers got sent. As I said, it is available here though, so I might buy it and test it out depending if you want to see that or not. But there are certainly going to be some titles where I can imagine an 8GB card would struggle. I can imagine the 8GB card appearing in a lot of pre-builts, but I do hope that retailers make the distinction between the two. Otherwise there may be a few unhappy gamers when it comes to trying to run some of the more demanding titles at high resolutions with higher texture options, for example. The Witcher 3 Next Gen at Ultra with SSR low. Now if you leave this at high it's going to have a massive impact on frame rate, so turning this down to low gave us 134 overall. We also have TAAU enabled here for a 1% low of 100 and a 0.1% low of 82. Definitely recommend turning the screen space reflections options down at this higher resolution for an improved frame rate. In Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, with the high preset, we're hitting 76 FPS in this opening jungle level. Just look at that VRAM usage and utilization once again. This is where the 16 gigs of VRAM is certainly useful in order to enjoy this game with higher visual quality because it does look very good. 76 overall, 1% low of 66 and a 0.1% low of 59. For Atomfall, with the Ultra preset again, take a look at the VRAM usage and utilization. We saw 92 FPS overall at the Ultra preset, 79 was that 1% low, and the 0.1% low was 77. I'm causing some chaos in and around one of the villages that you'll stumble across early on in the game. Really enjoying this one. I think it looks decent and it runs pretty well on this hardware. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 with the Ultra preset can be quite intensive, especially with DLAA enabled, so I disabled it for this one using the standard anti-aliasing solution. For 102 FPS, a 1% low of 78 and a 0.1% low of 73. So again, some pretty consistent results here. Fortnite with the high preset and nanite off with TAA for 145 frames per second. A few dips and drops here and there. I don't really see the point in enabling the fancier visual options for this one because it's an online competitive title and you're probably going to want as many frames as possible. In fact, I'm sure a lot of you would opt to go for even lower settings than this. Red Dead Redemption 2 still looks absolutely fantastic. Ultra textures, everything else set to high here with TAA and the sharpness turned up about halfway for 93 frames per second. This can produce a soft image with TAA and sharpness turned down, so I like to turn it up a little bit. 93 frames per second was pretty respectable, and again the percentile lows show us that the performance overall was rather consistent, even in and around the towns and cities. For Cyberpunk 2077 with high preset and high crowds, 89 FPS, a 1% low of 63 and a 0.1% low of 57. I should probably mention at this point, something I should have mentioned earlier, is that we're using an i9 and 32 gigs of DDR5 in dual channel mode to pair with our 5060 Ti in this one, ensuring that we're getting the absolute most out of this card. For Apex Legends with high settings and TSAA 217 FPS, again you may want to choose lower settings for a higher frame rate, but I thought considering that we're getting this frame rate anyway, a pretty high FPS figure overall, we may as well remain with the high settings here. Not only that, but our percentile lows represent some pretty consistent gameplay overall, so not much to complain about, if anything, with this one. Baldur's Gate 3, high preset and DLAA for 115 FPS, a 1% low of 88 and a 0.1% low of 61. It looks good and it performs well also. I've left DLAA on in the games whereby we're getting a really high frame rate anyway, because there will be a bit of a performance impact in comparison to say TAA, but sometimes it's worth it for the extra visual quality. And this is one of those cases. Forza Horizon 5, the same can be said, to be honest. DLAA was on here. With the Ultra preset, we saw 148 FPS, a 1% low of 130, and a 0.1% low of 126. This is a really well optimized title, and it runs really nicely on this modern 16 gig GPU. When it comes to Starfield, can't really say the same. It's a very demanding one, 65 FPS, and for that we had to turn things down to the medium preset. The 1% low was 52, and the 0.1% low was 29, so there were certainly a few areas whereby we saw a couple of dips and drops, especially in and around Aquila and the surrounding areas here. Helldivers 2 presented the same problems that we saw with 1080p in yesterday's one, in that there were a few intermittent judders or stutters shown by the frame time graph on the left of your screen. This isn't something I could really feel when actually playing, but you're going to notice it if you have any sort of performance overlay enabled, and it's just a bit annoying. I can't figure out why it's doing it, but still 93 FPS at the high preset. The 1% low of course was quite a bit lower than this, 49, and our 0.1% low was 44. I've kept Mafia Definitive Edition in the benchmarks because ever since installing it yesterday and testing it at 1080p, I've started playing through it again. It's one of those games that you start playing it and you sort of lose a couple of hours to it each time, or at least I do. 129 frames per second with a 1% low of 108 and a 0.1% low of 60. I've also decreased the field of view a bit. Before it looked like my car was floating about a mile away from the camera, but now hopefully it looks a little better. I've thrown the Half-Life 2 RTX demo in as well. Running it at the Ultra preset here requires DLSS Ultra performance for at least 60 frames per second. Even with this setting we saw 64 FPS, so we weren't quite exceeding this in every part of the included maps, and this can be seen from the 1 and 0.1% lows too, 53 and 42. So there were certainly some dips below 60 FPS, but I think a game like this, you're going to want to run it with the highest ray tracing options in order to get the most from the visuals. If this is an RTX showcase, you're going to want everything fancy enabled, I think, and I just wanted to show you what you needed to do in terms of the upscaling options in order to hit at least 60 frames per second. Quite intensive, this one. Avowed is also quite demanding, just 64 frames per second at the medium preset here, and turning things up higher than this meant that we were seeing sub 60 pretty much all of the time, especially in and around this first town here. I'd certainly suggest some upscaling if you want to play this one at higher settings. Hogwarts Legacy 1440p of course with the high preset and DLAA for 78 FPS. The 1% low was 50 and the 0.1% low was 38, so a few dips and drops in and around Hogsmeade, one of the opening areas of the game. Still looks pretty good though at these settings, and it runs okay. To end then, we'll have a couple more ray tracing and DLSS benchmarks, the first of which is The Witcher 3, the next-gen updated version of the game. Of course, with the RT Ultra preset and DLSS set to performance, we saw a very nice 69 frames per second, a 1% low of 53, and a 0.1% low of 11. So this one wasn't without its issues, especially in the busier areas. Finally, we have Cyberpunk 2077 1440p RT Ultra, again with DLSS performance, this time for 75 FPS, a 1% low of 58 and a 0.1% low of 51. So this time it was pretty consistent, to be honest, but we are going to need a pretty aggressive form of DLSS. This is the Transformer model, by the way, the latest version of DLSS, in order to hit a plus 60 FPS a lot of the time. But there we go. I think we'll be moving on from the 5060 Ti now. I just wanted to put these 1440p benchmarks out there for anyone thinking about buying one of these cards, because in the UK, at the time of this video, I have seen a few sites whereby they are available. This palette version included for the price it's supposed to be, $399. I've also seen the 8GB models for $349, but I think if you're going to try and save a bit of money and go for one of those, you may find yourself disappointed when it comes to playing some of the more demanding titles out there. We'll actually have a 3060 Ti to 5060 Ti comparison soon, whereby we'll be seeing what it takes to match the performance or exceed it with DLSS as well. How much of a sacrifice do we have to make in order to get similar or better performance? And that one will be coming up soon. But as for now, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one. As always, of course, leave your thoughts down below in the comments section too.